So once again, I have found myself in Port Canaveral, going on a cruise and needing to get back home to South Florida here in Miami. And I turned to my partner, the RedCoach Bus Line, and their first class bus. Super excited to be able to share with you what my experience was on RedCoach's first class bus. Hey everybody, it's Brandon, the Weekend Cruiser, where I go on a weekend cruise just about every weekend. And I wanted to share with you about RedCoach's first class bus. As you may remember, we partnered before, and I gave you all the different experiences that I promised you I was going to be on their first class bus. And I have officially been there, and I would 100% go back. Now, before we jump into this, I wanted to address one thing that I got a lot of questions on from the prior video, and that is, where does the actual bus go to? It does not go to Port Canaveral. Unfortunately, I have not found a good way to go to Port Canaveral at this point. So if you know of a good transit solution where I don't have a car and I'm not renting a car to get me to Port Canaveral, please let me know. But I have not found that. All the ways that I know of require me going to Orlando, whether that is a plane, train, or a bus. Those are going to be your three main options on how you can make that work. Now, the RedCoach station itself in Miami is Miami International Airport. So I can get over to Miami International, no problem. It's still going to stop in Fort Lauderdale International, and it's going to make a few stops along the expressway. However, when it gets to Orlando, it is actually stopping at the Orlando bus station with RedCoach. It is exclusively for their use, and it is about a 10-minute drive away from the airport. So it is not going to drop you off at the Orlando airport, which would make things much easier to get to the port. But that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. So you still have to take an Uber rideshare from the RedCoach station, either over to the Orlando airport to jump on a shuttle, or you can just simply take an Uber straight over to the port from the station. That's what I traditionally do. And then on the way back, I'm going to take a shuttle like Airport Express or something like that to Orlando airport, then take an Uber from there over to the station, which still saves me some money. It takes a little bit more time, but it's not a bad experience to do it like that. So with that all being said, let's jump into the actual content of the first class bus. Now, what was my initial response or reaction when I got on this bus? Now, I must say, first of all, I showed up at like 8:55, I think. The bus was leaving at 9 o'clock. So with buses, again, you just can show up at the exact time. So you can get an earlier one for a cruise than you may think, because I think this cruise ship let us off at 6:30, 7 o'clock. Anyway, I got there at 8:55 because I decided to stop a block or two away to pick up some food because I was going to be hungry for this trip. So I showed up. The bus driver was like, hey, we're getting ready to board. And so I quickly gave him my bags, got checked in, and went onto the bus. And I could already see that, number one, it's a full bus. People are seeking out the first class bus. They, see this option and they go, oh, wow, like, let's really give this a try. There's also only 27 seats. So I say that it is a full bus, but it's not really full. It's only 27 seats, but they were all taken. And the one thing that struck me quite interestingly was I was like, wow, this is like countries come to town on this bus, because it's a lot of, I'll say, traditional bus riders. It's people like myself and others that take the bus, but nobody expects, at least here in America, we don't expect a nice bus. We expect a lower class kind of bus. And that's not RedCoach's story on any of their experiences, but especially noticeable on their first class experience, that you can really feel the energy and the vibe. I remember hearing some comments on people just being like, oh, wow, like this is super nice and didn't expect this. So my initial reaction was very, very positive. I was also very fortunate to get a first row seat. So I had beautiful views of the upfront to be able to see out the window and enjoy my trip. For me getting on the bus at 8:55 a.m., we were gone about 3 minutes later. And so the bus actually left early, which I really loved. Everybody got there and they said, let's go. So that was a really great experience. In thinking of my prior RedCoach experiences, because I've taken their premium economy bus in addition to their business class bus, the dynamics on this one was a little bit different. The reason for that, there was a larger group sitting in the back. I don't know who orchestrated it in their party, but kudos to them for choosing the first class experience with RedCoach. But it changed the dynamic, and it was a little bit more chatty to start with. The people were talking, and more so than I'd seen in the past. There was a lot more solo folks on the bus before, or like a couple, something like that. In this case, it was a group of like 10 people sitting towards the back of the bus. But it also created a really nice community feel because they were extremely chatty and they didn't want people around them to feel left out. They were offering food and saying, hey, do you want some snacks? And it was a really, really nice feel in that regard. But it did calm down. Once the bus got going, I was honestly kind of worried that it was going to be just a noisy, loud bus. But once we hit the road and got going 5 minutes later, people started sleeping, they started reading books, and it got really quiet and calm. So the actual space on the first class bus, and this is what's going to make the first class bus really exceptional, in my opinion, is that it's only got 27 seats. So it was a full bus. And you say full bus, I mean, it looks full because all the seats are taken, but a normal bus is going to have 50 some people on it. This has almost half the amount of people that you're traditionally going to see. And I think that it fills up because it is one that is sought after. People want to be on this first class bus. And you're talking literally like a $10 to $20 difference on the fare from the business bus. It is not that much more expensive to take the first class bus than the other buses, especially if you're booking in advance. A lot of people book these last minute. If you're like me going on a cruise, you know when that cruise is and you can lock in your rate, you're going to get a really good deal on the first class bus. And you're going to get a good pick of what seat you want to be in. The layout of this bus, because it only has 27 seats, is also super cool because you've got 2 seats together on, I'll say the left side of the bus when you're facing forward or facing the driver, and then just one on the other side all the way down. And so for people like me who travel solo, it's kind of nice not to sit with somebody and be rubbing elbows with somebody, and you feel like you have a lot more space. Now, these seats, you all, are super big. I mean, I feel like I was a little bit swallowed up in them, but they were comfortable. It reminded me a little bit of if you have a sports car, you know, it has a curved back or a way that it kind of like, it just wraps around your body somehow. That's what these seats did, and they were super comfortable. They also had a leg rest that would come up that you could put your leg rest on to support your legs while you were traveling. And the way that this one would recline, I think this is where I heard most of the people making comments that had gotten on this bus and they were reclining for the very first time. They were like, oh, wow, it doesn't stop. It keeps on going. Now, it's not a lie flat seat. I thought that it was going to be a lie flat seat, and it was not. It was almost there, though. I mean, you still go really, really far. And when you're in a bus or a plane or something like that, I think one of the fears that I've always had is if I do go all the way back, am I going to be creating a problem for the person behind me? And in this case, you really don't. The seats are super far apart. Again, all of them are going to have this leg extension that goes out. So your legs can go pretty straight almost. And then when you lay back, you're not in that person's lap. They still have plenty of room to be able to do what they want to do and to be able to move around. So there is no issues there. It's also going to come with outlets and plugs. So more importantly, on these trips, you know, you may be running low on your battery life of whatever you're using. You do get one US plug and you're going to get one USB-A plug as well. So if you want to just plug in and charge your phone, you can do that. Or in my case, you can whip out the laptop, plug it in, and you're going to have enough battery, enough power to get you where it is that bus may be going. The one downside that I'll say to this first class bus, and I think this was the same on the other ones, but I didn't really notice it, was the overhead bin space. So most of the time you can just check your bags down below, no issue there whatsoever. And I think they allow you to do 2 free bags, but if you want to do more than that, you can pay. It's like $20 extra. It's nothing like an airline. If you want to go with 3-4 bags, it's still going to be super cheap. But if you go on inside the bus, the above bin space, contrary to airplanes on this bus, it's kind of small. It's not a really large setup, and you're going a bag that is more flat. Mine, just coming from a cruise, and this was actually probably more like a week and a half to 2-week trip because I was bouncing around a few places. My backpack was pretty sizable, especially with all my camera equipment and everything in there. And so I didn't even try to get it to fit in the above headband. Again, I kind of ran late, and as soon as I boarded, they took off. And so I didn't want to be standing in the aisle while we were going down the road trying to make this bag fit in the above space. But the good news is, again, there's so much space, I just kept it at my feet. I kept the bag right beside of me, and it fit perfectly without getting in my way or feeling like I was cramped or cramping in on someone else. And one thing I did not do on this trip that I have done on subsequent RedCoach buses is I did not need to go to the restroom, which I'm always thankful for. Look, it's still a bus. Try not to use it if you don't have to. When I've done it on their other buses, it's been absolutely clean. It's been fine, but it's a bus going down the highway. If I don't have to go to it, I'm not going to go to it. And so in this case, I didn't feel the need to go just so that I could pull out my phone and start recording the inside of it. Here's some video of some of the other buses to show you what they look like. I'm sure this one was just as clean, but I didn't get a chance to experience it. And honestly, I didn't hear anybody else get up or go and experience this as well. The most you're going to do in Orlando to Miami is around 4 hours. So most people are going to be good for that period of time. And luckily, this trip went super quick. I didn't realize this, but it was kind of an express bus that I had signed up for. So the first class bus is really designed for people who are going longer distances. And so in this case, it did not stop until it got to Fort Lauderdale. and then it stopped in Miami. And they've also got express buses that run overnight. So if you wanted to sleep throughout your trip and show up in Orlando or show up in Miami, you can do that overnight and show up first thing, nice and refreshed, hopefully, though it's only about a 4-hour trip, but you can sleep all of it once it reclines all the way back. So check out the schedules. The first class buses, there's not a lot of them, so you kind of got to get the right timing. I was super lucky that I came in on the MSC Seashore, which it's not really a weekend. It does Thursdays to Sunday, which annoys me, but it gives me this great option where now I can get over to the first class bus for the 9 o'clock departure and I can make it home around noon, which is perfect. So this is definitely my preferred way to go from Miami and Orlando down to Miami is with RedCoach, specifically this first class bus. If I ever see that my schedule lines up to it, or even if I need to like push it a little bit, I'm going to say, let me get on that first class bus for the cost. It's like $10 to $20 more, especially in my case where I know I'm going on a cruise because I booked those well in advance to get the lower rates. Same thing with the bus. If you book it well in advance, you're going to get lower rates. Take my word for this, book the first class bus. The other ones are great. Business class is also my other go-to. They used to have one that I took often, but now I'm going to try to be doing that first class bus because again, for the money, you're looking at $30, $40 for a one-way trip from Miami to Orlando, which is nothing compared to a train or a plane ticket to also make that happen. So if you want to learn more about RedCoach, maybe you're going, Brandon, I really just want the absolute cheapest option. I want like the $15, the $20. Make sure you're checking out this video here on all the different experiences that RedCoach has to offer. All right, everybody, this is Brandon, the Weekend Cruiser. Hoping to see you on a weekend cruise soon.